Welcome to our Mary Greeley Primetime Alive program, Senior Living Options. Which one is right for me? I am Vicki Newell, and I manage the Primetime Alive program here at Mary Greeley. As a reminder, if you want more information about Primetime Alive, to join or to sign up for a program, you can go to mgmc.org/PTA. Our presenter today is Dawn Borwig. Dawn is the Chief Executive Officer for Northcrest Community and has been in the world of senior housing since 2007. With over 17 years of experience, Dawn has worked with residents and families in independent living, assisted living, long-term care, and memory care. She is a licensed nursing home administrator, assisted living manager, and certified dementia practitioner. Dawn's passion is providing hospitality, care, compassion, and love to seniors. She is convinced this is one of the best jobs on the planet, a job where having a heart is required and daily hugs are accepted. Please welcome Dawn.
Thank you. Thank you, Vicki. Good afternoon, Primetime Alive members, both here and remotely. I'm very happy to see this size of crowd. This is a really great topic, one that I'm passionate about, so I'm really happy that Vicki reached out to me and said, would you give us some options on senior housing? So my first disclaimer is that this is not a commercial for a Northcrest Community. So I'll put that out on the table first. I have been involved, as my bio said, for over 17 years, which at this point, all I can say is time flies. I never thought when I dipped my toes into working with seniors that I would stay. But as my bio said, I found out very quickly that this is a world where you not only bring your body to work and your brain to think, but you have to bring your heart. And that is the one thing that our employees know when they first start, that this is a job for the heart, not the heartless. So when I say hearts are required and hugs are accepted, that's truly how the world of senior living and the world of senior housing truly is for all of us. I don't think anybody who works in this industry, I'll call it, has a day without a hug with someone. And it's truly a world of compassion and care for each other. So that's why I like to say the heart is required, and there's a lot of places you don't dare hug. So we do allow that, though. So we'll get started. You've got your handouts. So first of all, senior living options. What a huge decision. If you haven't made that decision yet to maybe just do something, or even just doing nothing is truly a decision. So it's big, and no one discounts that. We don't discount that. Hopefully your family doesn't discount that. This is one of those life decisions. I look at it and I think, man, this is almost like picking your career, or picking where you're what geographical area of the United States or maybe overseas that you want to live. It's a big decision, and we certainly acknowledge that. Here's some feelings, and you might relate to these. Overwhelming. I know I can't see the Zoomers, but for those in this room who feel like this is an overwhelming situation. Okay, we've got a really good show of hands. You're exactly right. It's overwhelming. There's so many decisions to make. Confusing. How many people think it's confusing? It's confusing. Let me tell you, it's not a feeling, it's the truth. It is a confusing world, and that's why I'm going to today just give you some really basic pros and cons of different options that you may already just think that's a natural, or it may be something that, I hadn't really thought of that. So we'll try and dispel some of the confusion. It's uncertain. We know that the future for any of us, regardless of age, Our future is always uncertain, and it's really how we view that and the perspective that we're willing to take on how we view that uncertainty and that it's going to be okay, because it almost always is. There's some excitement behind it. I think anytime I get ready to move, and I've moved a lot because I like it. I like the change. It's exciting for me. It's not very exciting for a lot of people. And the minute you start moving those boxes, I think, what was I thinking of? But there is an element of excitement when you go to make a change, and it's a kind of a new chapter. There's a little element of hope right along with that. And the big daddy of them all is fear. When we work with residents or prospective residents, and I've been doing this for 17 years, the number one thing is, what are you most afraid of? And it can be totally different things for different people. But fear is the number one thing. So if you have fear of making a decision, it's valid. But then on the other side of that coin is that post-decision feeling. Relief. Great, great relief that a decision is made, and even when the decision is made and the actual, if it is to move, if the decision is actually to move, there's still a huge sense of relief. Security, you feel secure in your decision. Nervousness, definitely. Did I make the right decision? Am I going the right place? Am I staying here? If I'm staying here, did I make the right decision by trying to stay in my home? Empowerment. I don't think too many people would put empowerment on this list, but I did, because it is, I made this decision, or we as a couple made this decision, and yay for us. We made it. Our children didn't make it. Maybe my siblings didn't make it. We made this decision. And it's truly an accomplishment to get to that point, because there's a lot of legwork to get there. And then, just like fear, the number one thing we hear about making that decision, regardless of what it is that they are at peace. And I think all of us can think back to a time where we've made a big decision, and that flow of peacefulness that can flow through you, it's noticeable. And so post-decision feelings for senior living is the same way. This is why it's confusing, okay? This is all a lot of options, right? I'm not going to go, the good news of the day is I'm not going through all of these. But I want you to know this is why it feels overwhelming, because there are so many choices. I'm going to use my pointer, and we're going to talk mostly today about independent living, some home, some staying at home. And if you could kind of divide this right down through here, maybe just tear the paper in half.
I forgot to tell you, if you use the cursor to do that, then the people at home can see what you're doing also.
Okay, let me try my best here. Okay. There we go. Thank you, Vicki.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to concentrate here. But if you divide right down here, everything to the left here, I would consider that wants. I want to go to the senior center services. I want to do wellness programming. And we've got the wonderful 60 Forward that's under construction right now. I consider that a want. We still have the autonomy to go and do those things. But there is a point, and it's reality, that you may need the services that are on the right of the screen. And so if you just kind of cut this down the middle, when you say, I really don't need those services, I don't really need this or that, that is great. I'm glad you don't, but there may be a day where assisted living will be in your cards, or skilled nursing, memory support. All of these start to see a need, even adult daycare. So that's what we're going to jump in to the independent senior living options. So I picked 6 common arrangements for senior living. You may know more, you may have 16, but I just picked the top 6. Some you may not really see here in Story County, or maybe very little in Iowa, but it doesn't mean it can't happen, and it doesn't mean you can't be a trendsetter. So we'll go into the first one, and you've got your handout, so you know I'm going to go into pros and cons of each. But the first one is house sharing. We don't see a lot of that here in Iowa, but we'll go into that. Moving in with the kids. Raise hands. Anybody want to move in with the kids? Oh, my daughter would have a fit. She would be, oh no, this is not happening. If I said, hey, I'm moving in with you, make sure you get an extra bedroom. She would not have any of that. But it is an option, and it's a really viable option for some. Aging in place. There's a ton of conversations in publications and in all of the things that we read about aging in place. I think in our area, for Story County, for the Ames area, aging in place is often viewed as, I'm going to stay in my own home, that I want to age in my place. So we'll go through that one too. Independent living communities, I'll review some that are here in town. Life plan communities and what makes them different from independent living communities. And then subsidized housing. So, house sharing. Let's look at the pros. The house sharing can be done with family or friends. It doesn't matter. There is a website that you can find roommates. So I went out and typed in Ames's zip code and to see how many maybe seniors are trying to house share. There's none. So you could be a trendsetter. But if you get a little bit to the West Coast, starting in about Colorado and going west, there is a ton of house sharing going on. I found one in Omaha and I found one in Davenport. And then when you go to the East Coast, again, you start to see that pick up where people have the housing, but they may be alone now. And they really either want the companionship, the socialization. There's a great chance for mental stimulation. Do you want to play games? Do you want to go to some cultural events together? And there's some real financial benefits, obviously, to sharing, whether you're the landlord or you're the renter. The websites, I had 2, and actually they have now combined. So I'm not quite sure, but if you have interest for that website, I'll be glad to share it with you. The cons is it could be family. Family is not for everyone. We want to be super, super sensitive to that because family does not always mean positive things to everyone. And so house sharing with a family is probably not a really good idea if you are in one of those families. And then just truly, it's a lack of privacy. You may have a room that you can lock, but you're still sharing a refrigerator or maybe sharing even the bathroom. So lack of privacy can be big. Differences in lifestyle. How do you know that when you pick a roommate? It's like going to college. This is your roommate and you find out, I'm a neatnik and you're kind of a slob. So I don't really like this arrangement. So can be definite differences in lifestyles, down to even cleaning up the kitchen. And if you are the renter, you do have that lack of control. At this point, you need to be self-sufficient. And as the level of independence or maybe mobility or health changes over time, that roommate could become a caregiver. And you may want that, you may not want that. One of the components of this program today is to just talk a little bit about where do I get health care? If I'm in a house sharing situation, where do I have to go for my healthcare? So on each one of these slides, I'm going to add the healthcare component to it. If you're in a room sharing situation, if you've got a house or you're going to become a roommate, you really have no options for healthcare inside of that environment. You're still going to need to go out and search for maybe assisted living or memory care, or if you're having a hip replaced, you're going to have to search for that. There are no givens in this type of environment. And that would apply to any level of care. And moving in with the kids has a lot of similarities to house sharing. It can definitely be a win-win. That mutual support, I'll babysit for you if you make all the meals because I don't want to cook anymore. That is a great arrangement. And then it's familiar, it's your family. And that can, again, be good, it can be bad. But the multi-generational is a big component of senior living these days. And to be able to go to grandkids' sporting events, or, any type of school events, or maybe it's even a little bit older, maybe the great-grands are arriving, and you can spend time with them. It's typically a very active lifestyle. There is some safety and security wound around that because you're with family, and truly financial benefits because you are probably just maybe contributing at a low amount to the overall household expenses. But here comes those cons. Again, it's family and it's not for everyone. If you have great family dynamics, that's kudos to you. But I think every family has some dynamics in it. And if you're not in one of those family, I applaud you. But we work with families every day that have dynamics. And whether you want them or not, sometimes that happens because the truth of the matter is you're usually very similar. And very similar people don't always get along. If mobility is an issue, you could get left behind. Hey, we're gonna run over to Adam's soccer game. We'll be back, and you may be left behind. This one I see is kind of a issue. I think for me, even if I would consider this, is this my space or is it really my child's? Do I really get to touch that? Do I get to move this candle from this shelf to over there because I think it would look better? Maybe, maybe not. And then you do have to make an effort to socialize outside of that family. You don't want to lose touch with your friends. And it's easy to do so because you have a built-in network. And so you have to make an effort. And then as maybe health starts to change, the dynamics of your relationship changes. And a son and a daughter now becomes a caregiver. And if you've been in that position, you know what I'm talking about because the relationship is no longer, this is my mom or my dad. This is someone I'm maybe helping to the bathroom or I'm going to give them a shower. We at Northcrest, speaking for us, is when families come, one of our biggest goals is to do that caregiving. Obviously, that's what we do a lot of, because we want sons and daughters or cousins or close friends to be exactly that, to retain and maintain that relationship. For healthcare, I'm going to back up one. For healthcare, it's very much as the house sharing. There's no, other than the family members maybe providing some cares, there's really no built-in care. And if you go back to that continuum, you're going to be on that right side of the screen looking for either assisted living or maybe a place to recuperate if you have that hip surgery. There's just really no options on this one. Aging in place, staying at home. We hear a lot of chatter about this because really, who wants to move? I do. I told you that up front. But I am a little bit quirky that way. But there are some definite pros to this. One, you don't have to downsize. I have Emmeline Olson here with me today. She's our senior living manager. And our number one reason why people aren't ready to come to Northcrest is because they need to downsize. I have too much stuff. So the good news about staying in your home is you don't have to get rid of your stuff. And it is, of course, the family home. I'm not going to ask for a raise of hands on this one, but I have a feeling all of you, most of you, have experienced your children saying, but Mom and Dad, you can't leave this. This is my childhood home. This is where I grew up. How can you leave me homeless? Well, they've probably been out of the home for 25 years. They're not homeless, right? So there's a little guilt going on there, but it does keep that family home. So when your kids come home from California once every 6 months, they can come back to the family home. Continuity. You've lived there for 40 years, maybe 50 years, some 60 years. You get that continuity of staying where you have spent a majority of your life. It's cost effective. I would say most people have their mortgages paid off by now, and they are able to just basically look at taxes and utilities from a housing perspective. And there is a perception, and I'm going to call it perception, and I will explain it more later, of independence. The cons, these are real as well. The first of all, as you change, your physical structure needs to change. And it's costly. The first thing that you have to worry about is your safety. And let's say I'm going to go back to the hip surgery. You're having hip surgery, but maybe it's just taking longer to recuperate or whatever. How do you get up that flight of steps to get to your bathroom? Things like that. So if you're going to stay in your home or age in place, you need to accommodate those changes that are maybe occurring or will occur later in life or as you age. And of course, from the healthcare standpoint, there's limited access to care. You can get in-home care. You can get companions to come in and help with things, but it is very costly. If you haven't checked into in-home care that's not already covered by a Medicare plan, it's costly. And if you need a higher level of care that can't be given in your home, where are you going to go? You're back to your decision-making mode again, and you're back to that level of stress. If you lose some of your mobility and maybe driving isn't in your cards anymore, how are you going to get places? How are you going to go? You know, it's nice to call on friends and it's nice to call on family, and we encourage that. But sometimes there's a point at which somebody is getting to the point they want to kind of raise that white flag and say, you know, I took you to the store the last 3 days in a row. I really can't make 4 days in a row. So you got to think about future mobility. And we're going to talk about socialization. This is a big one for staying in your home and staying in place. I do have a slide. If you've jumped ahead, you already know it's in there. But if there's one thing that COVID taught us about being in our homes and not going out to see people and not going places, is that socialization is not good. And it happens. If you stay in your own home, the likelihood of that happening is greater. And the last note that I have is really you need to think about how long is this going to work? So how long am I going to, maybe I've decided to stay here, but is that still going to be a good decision 5 years from now? Is it still going to be a good decision 10 years from now? So think about that. I don't know if everybody thinks about that one, but just try to put a timeline on that for yourselves. Okay, moving on. Independent living communities. I'm going to just give you an example of a couple here in Ames, just so you can kind of get your frame of reference together. Windsor Oaks is a independent living community, and then I would also call the Village Cooperative an independent living community. Basically 55 plus active living. That's how I would describe it. So some of the renovated schools, not necessarily here in Ames, but a lot of communities that are renovating schools are making them more into a 55-plus neighborhood. Typically a condo or an apartment style living, which gives you low maintenance. You get out of that home maintenance. I forgot to put that on my cons for staying in place. Maintenance is a huge component of staying in place. That would be a con. The pros also for 55 plus active living is that you typically get some amenities, whether it's a fitness room or a social room, and then maybe planned social events that every Thursday is happy hour and every Saturday is a potluck, things like that. So you do get some built-in socialization opportunities. The cons are there is age restrictions on these. If you're in a 55 plus, you have to know whether or not your 52-year-old spouse can come. Some, not all, do need approval. If you decide to sell your unit, you have to get approval either from their board of directors or from your neighbors. So if you're looking at a community like this, make sure you ask those questions. Limited services, typically not transportation or meals provided. Again, that whole question of mobility kind of pops into the picture. If you decide not to do the activities, to go to the potluck, to go to the happy hour, your socialization is going to be inherent. Because if you're in a condo or an apartment style living and you decide not to come and participate, that socialization and social isolation is going to kick in. If your care needs increase, can you get those on site? Again, maybe some home care. And home care, just so you know, has criteria. Just because you call up and say, hey, I'd like to get home care tomorrow and I want Medicare to pay for it, and I'm not going to get into Medicare because that's a really long topic. But if you think there are criteria to meet, it's not a given that you're going to be able to receive those services covered. So that's when it reverts back to my earlier comment that it can be very costly. And lastly is this may not be, you may have to be making this decision again. Again, how long do you feel like this is going to last? 5 years? 10 years? And if you're happy with that and that's all you're really looking for, that's great. Just needs to be a component of your decision. With healthcare, like I said, you might get some in-home services. Caretakers can normally come into your apartments or your condos and provide care. But again, you're still going to be looking for, with that hip surgery, where should I recover, if I need rehab, if I need longer care, if maybe I'm just not recuperating well. Okay, life plan communities. These used to be called CCRCs, Continuing Care Retirement Communities. And this is probably 10 years ago. I might be off on my timeline. They were changed to say life plan communities because it's much more accurate description. This is a place that you can plan for the rest of your life. It provides a life plan community. I'll give you some examples for our area. Would be a North Crest community, North Ridge Village, and we do get mixed up a lot. Bethany Life up in Story City, and then Green Hills. So we all provide a continuum of care. And I'll show you a little bit later how we all have the same goal, but we get there just a little bit differently. But this does provide a plan of care for life. You start out in independent living, and if you go back to that crazy busy chart, when you start at independent living, everything to the right is most likely going to be accessible to you. So it's a tiered approach to aging. So for example, we start with an independent living. At North Crest and those others that I mentioned, we have assisted living, we have a health center, we have memory care, and then we bring in hospice services as needed. Or if someone wants to use home health, they're welcome to bring in a separate home health, but we also do some home health in people's apartments or townhomes. So there is the gamut of health services. There's all those levels of care. The Pro 2 is the maintenance-free living, and then the social engagement. There's a lot of things to do, and it's not about keeping busy. And that's kind of my pet peeve of this world, is that we're not trying to keep seniors busy. We're trying to keep you engaged and connected, because we all, as a basic need to feel connected. And so a community can do that. There's the connections through the socializations, even if it's just in a neighborhood or on a certain floor. And there is a true sense of community where people take care of each other. They're worried about each other, and they're very welcoming. It's like the Ames community. I think we've all tried to just duplicate how warm and welcoming Ames is in general. Now, you have to give me some grace. I did have another side of pros for you, and then we'll get to the cons. So in a life care community, there is financial predictability. And what do I mean by that? Most places, including Northcrest, has a financial structure that you know up front. Unlike the other options that we just reviewed, those all give you there's no predictability to that. You don't know what your cost of care is going to be a year down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. But in a life care or a life plan community, there is financial predictability. There is a financial structure that you would know up front and can plan. There's that security of being a part of a community, both safety, security, and the financial security. And what that leads to is a great sense of peace of mind for not only you, but your family. I can tell you from being one of those adult children that we worry about our moms and dads. We worry a lot. And you know what? Probably most parents don't want you to worry. But so if you can provide some peace of mind to your family, to your close friends, it's not only for you, it's for them. Continued independence, because you are living independently. There are many nonprofits that live in this segment that have foundations. And with those foundations, if they are a nonprofit, with the foundations, there may be options for charitable assistance or benevolence if finances were to become a problem. And then once decisions are made, and here you just go and enjoy. But there are some cons, and these I could say could be a pro on some of these. But the first con is you need to understand the option. They come with contracts. You need to understand the various contracts that are available and what each includes. Some contracts, you pay a larger upfront fee and a monthly fee, but you do not pay the exorbitant healthcare costs. If anybody has been in a nursing home recently, either recuperation or whatever, the going rate is about $335 a day, which if you get your math out, you're right close to $10,000 a day to be in either a nursing home for long-term care.
I think you mean a month.
A month. I'm sorry. Did I say a year? Thank you. Oh my gosh. Yes, that's a definite slip. It's not a year. It's a month. It's $10,000 a month. So if you need to understand that as you look at the other options too, that how those costs play into that. And then there's ownership versus right to occupy. Some places you are offered a deed and you own your piece of your condo or your townhome, and some places you are buying in with a right to occupy for the rest of your life. So you just need to understand that, and it can be confusing, but the thing to do is ask questions. Ask lots of questions if you are interested in that. Cost can be a con for some. Depending on the type of contract, there are different types. There could be a one-time entrance fee with monthly service fees. It could be a higher fee. It could be a lower fee. Again, I would hate to even begin to start that conversation today. But again, it's questions. What do I get for those fees? How often do I have to pay those fees? You want to ask a lot of questions. And it's a long-term commitment. I think that's also a pro because your decisions are made and you can go in peace and enjoy yourself. And so it is, if you're going to make the financial investment, I would definitely call it an investment. If you're going to make that investment, it's going to be probably a long term. And some might say that there is a sense of loss of control because I no longer occupy my home or own my own home. For some, that's important. For others, it's such a relief not to be a homeowner anymore. So you really have to look at what is inside here. What are my values? And that's really what it comes down to when you start to look at different places is what are my values? Do I see that as changing a little bit as I age? Potentially, because your needs are going to change. And then subsidized housing. I wanted to talk about that a little bit. There are definite pros to subsidized housing. It's for affordability, number one. Subsidized housing is based on income. And so it would be a reduced rent for those who might not have the means to pay full rent. It's good for limited or fixed income individuals, which really frees up more disposable income for food and transportation or maybe medical bills. Subsidized housing usually has access to supportive services, typically not on site, but there's usually someone there that knows what the community resources are to help you. So if you need transportation, can they give you the number to HERDA? Or if you need meals, can you get signed up for Meals on Wheels? So there's usually someone there to help support you in that way. And there's an opportunity to engage with neighbors for that socialization piece. There's safety and security. Normally, these buildings are secure. And you're not stuck with maintenance of your own home. And many of them are ADA compliant, and I like to call that age friendly, not necessarily based on age, but they do usually have a lot of accessibilities built right in to the environment. From a healthcare standpoint, let me do cons. The cons on subsidized housing, if you are thinking about that, is they usually have wait lists, long wait lists. Subsidized housing is implemented through local, state, and federal government programs. And so there's usually a wait list to get, they've gone to a voucher program. I can say when I first graduated from Iowa State, my first job was to work with subsidized housing. And it was a great experience because I met a lot of people and I met a lot of elderly people. I met a lot of those who are maybe not as fortunate as others. And it's a big need. The con is it is income restricted and there's limited choices. There's not a lot of subsidized housing out there. And because it's a government program, you get some bureaucracy involved in that, which includes paperwork and some government regulations. And unfortunately, there may be a stigma to living in subsidized housing. Hate to say it, but I think that exists. Typically, no health care is provided here. Again, if you are unable to get out and you are homebound, home health care may be an option, but if you have that hip surgery, you still are going to be looking for a place to go. Okay. This is my message for the day. I'm going to dispel the myth. Location does not equal independence. I can tell you, I hear every single day, I'm going to stay in my home because I want to stay independent. I'm going to go here because I want to be independent. I'm going to go there because I want to be independent. Independent is you and your lifestyle. It is not attached to where you call home. It's more about individuality, about the freedom to do what you want to do, to assert your opinions, to pursue your own goals, and to take responsibility for your actions. It's not a street address. So I really just want to leave that one really heavy with you, is when you say you want to be independent, you can be independent at any of these options, at any 6 of these options. That's all it's up to you. And, one of the goals as being in this field is, our goal at Northcrest, at least, is to keep you independent and to help with wellness programs and health care programs, like, bringing in dietitians and things like that. It's all about keeping people healthy so you can stay mobile, not stay independent, stay mobile and keep doing things. So I would just ask you, when you start using the word independent, to start thinking about, what do I really mean when I say I want to stay independent? Because it does mean different things for different people. All right, I'm going to get a little bit on a soapbox for everybody, and that is socialization. The effects of loneliness is big. I read a lot of studies since COVID. We all know, I do not need to talk to this crowd about the effects that COVID had on every age group, from the wee little minions all the way through 100-year-old individuals. It was a negative effect on us. That lack of socialization really took its toll. There's some sources here for you. I did not list the exact publications, but I can get them for you if you want. But the World Health Organization came out and said loneliness, which can be an effect of lack of socialization, is among the most significant global health concern. It's among one of the highest priorities, or one of the biggest things. Now that's for the world. It's not just for the U.S. or Story County or Ames. It's for the world, because it's such a real thing that exists, and the effects are so negative. The Surgeon General has come out and said mortality rates of loneliness are equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Surprising, right? We know that smoking can be detrimental to your health, but the Surgeon General has put his stamp on that. And then this study just came out in June, a month ago, from Harvard. It was led by the T.H. Chan School of Public Health in Boston. And this one caught my attention pretty big too, that in adults of 50 and older with chronic loneliness had 56% higher risk of stroke due to lack of socialization. And we're talking chronic loneliness. And I also want to mention too, that loneliness doesn't mean that you can't be around people and still be lonely. We know that feeling can still exist in this room, even if we have a room full of people. But your likelihood is less if you're in an environment that promotes socialization. So, many senior organizations, their goal is to provide an environment where you have supportive relationships, feelings of connections, social activities, outings, but we also know too that gets harder as you age, whether it's due to mobility or even just lack of desire, that can happen. I worked for a lot of years in assisted living, still do, but not quite as directly, and I used to tell families that assisted living, a good reason to come to assisted living is that assisted living is a 3-legged stool. It provides, one leg of that stool is probably meals, because a lot of people get tired of cooking. I'm there already. So cooking and getting nutrition It's nutrition. It's not necessarily the cooking or the meals themselves, but it's nutritious meals. And sometimes the medical care, which includes med management, is your second leg of the stool. But the third leg is socialization. And if you don't have one of those legs on a three-legged stool, you're going to fall over. And so think about that as you, again, are doing your planning. Try and keep the three legs on your stool level. And it's all three of them. Okay, let's jump into Story County a little bit specifically. Independent living communities, I mentioned that before. Windsor Oaks, and like I said, this is not a comprehensive list, an all-inclusive list. This is the ones that I personally know of and can speak to a little bit. So in independent living, that's kind of your 55 plus active living. I hesitate to use the word active because all of these options are active. But you will see marketing for 55 plus active adult communities. So those are the two that I'm aware of in Ames. And like I said, it's not necessarily an all-inclusive list. And then life plan communities would be, I mentioned Northcrest, Green Hills, North Ridge, and Bethany Life up in Story City. So my number one question I think I get when I'm meeting with someone is, actually, I'm going to back up. This does not include, obviously, any assisted living locations, nursing homes, health centers, or anything throughout. We just really tried to focus on independent today. So that's why many of those are not on the list. So oftentimes the question comes up is, what is the difference? Why the difference? And my easiest explanation is that we are all going to the same place. We are all going to the place where quality services and care are provided for our residents. But we take a different road to get there. And each one of us in the life plan space here go a different route. Whether some are, Green Hills is home ownership, Northcrest is the right to occupy, North Ridge is a rental model, and Bethany Life, I believe, is a hybrid of that. But we're all trying to go to the same place. It's back to the original question, what is the right fit for me? And that's why you've got to do your research, you've got to do your homework. The thing is, when you start now. It's not too early. Start making your plan. And if your plan is to stay right where you're at, that's still a plan. But make a plan. Review your current health needs. You may be able to anticipate some future health needs. Most of us can't do that. But you might know what's on the horizon, maybe based on a diagnosis. Review your finances. Meet with your financial planner or your financial advisor if you have one, and just talk about finances. And then don't forget your attorney. Don't forget you're a lawyer who can really help you put the pieces together, put a living will together, put some advanced directives together. Those are really important things for anybody to have, regardless of where you live. Back to the question, what fits for you? You're going to know, especially on a community level, if you have ever visited a community such as Northcrest or Green Hills or North Ridge, any of them, or maybe the co-op, we all have personalities, just like people. Our communities have personalities, and some personalities are a good fit for you, and some personalities are not a good fit for you. So get the feel of it. I'm a touchy-feely type person, and it's get the feel of what you feel when you walk in. And if it doesn't feel right, you kind of got to go with your gut. So make sure you do that, and develop a timeline. Do not wait. If you wait, sometimes that can really backfire. And all that decision making that we talked about and all those pros and cons, they go right out the window because you may not have choices. So make the decisions why you and your spouse or just you and your kids can get together and talk about it and say, you know what, I'm really thinking about doing this. What do you think? And the other reason not to wait is go and enjoy what you've chosen. There is so much good in a 55 plus or in subsidized housing. There's a neighborhood, there's people, and enjoy that. Get to know somebody new, make some new friendships. Keep your old, but make some new. But don't wait. That is another thing we hear very often is, I don't need that. Okay, that's great. And I'm really happy you don't need that. But don't you want it? Don't you want to start doing, making your plans? Start doing it while you are the decision maker. That is my biggest piece of advice on that. And you've got a lot of enjoyment ahead of you. Now, this one is going to be the help for aging parents. You might be sitting here with aging parents that you need to help. Or you might be sitting here and you have kids that have been trying to talk to you about this, and you really don't want to talk about it. So I have geared this towards adult children, but keep in mind, if your adult children are coming to you, try and keep an open mind. So there are some general considerations to give as parents age. And the first is sometimes loss does define our world. I have loss. I can't run like I used to because I'm not going to tell you, but I can't run. And to me, that is a loss for me. So the loss can be a lot of different things, but we all experience loss as we start to age. And it may be loss of a hobby, loss of a spouse, maybe our own mobility and control over things. Who doesn't want to be in control? I think we all typically do. And one of those things could be loss of decision making. Maybe there's some cognitive decline. And so I think a lot of people are hesitant to start talking with their kids because they think they're going to tell them what to do. And I want you to be open-minded if you are that parent or if you are going to approach your parents, it's not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that people care and you're trying to make a plan. I bet most people in this room have made a plan their entire life, whether it's what you're going to do this weekend or what you're going to do a month from now. There's always planning going on. So why is this any different? It shouldn't be any different. And for most parents, sometimes, shouldn't say most, but sometimes accepting help is difficult because they have been the parent or you have been the parent. You should be helping your kids, not your kids helping you. And there's that gamut of emotions. There's all those emotions we talked about up front, but there's a lot of sometimes guilt. And guilt can be, I'm guilty because I'm laying this on my kids. Or the kids could say, I'm guilty because I really want to be the one to help take care of them as they age, but I can't. I have a job. I have 4 kids. I just can't. So guilt can be included in that gamut of emotions. And so it's really good to start talking about the plan because not having a plan is more stressful. Start early, because if you have those parents or you are those parents that you have a lot of stuff, don't let the stuff get in the way, because it's stuff. I know some stuff is better stuff than other stuff, but it's stuff. So if you have stuff and that's keeping you from making a decision, start working on that. Start making some decisions to donate to a worthy organization. There are so many agencies that would love your donations. And I actually have a list of those today if you want one. And then start doing your homework. Narrow down your options. what's right for me? That one, process of elimination, not for me. This one, maybe. They'll go on the list, but start working on it. Ask for help. There's tons of resources. One of the things I want to leave you with today too is that most people, including myself, who work with senior housing or long-term care or hospice or anything like that, we are here for you. We do this because we love to do it. And we can always be a resource. It's not a competitive thing. If somebody walked down the stairs today and said, I'm really thinking about going to Northridge Village, I would say, tell me about that. It's not a competitive thing. I want you to be happy where you go, and I want you to get what you need and what you want. So there's a lot of resources. Tap into them. Involve your siblings, if you're that child, or involve close friends. You don't have to do this alone. There's a lot of support. There's a lot of things that we do with others because we want that moral support. Get the moral support. Use empathy. Pressure never works. Nobody likes to be told what to do. Pretty much applies to my spouse, my kids, and if my parents were still here, it would apply to them too. Don't pressure. Just listen and use empathy and say, yeah, Mom, I understand. You've got a lot of stuff here. You do have a lot of stuff, and it's important to you. Is there anything you think you can let go? And then start the conversation by listening. And make plans, not just one plan. Make your backup plan. Plan A, B, and C. And know that if those plans change, that's the world we live in. Something's bound to change after making your plan. So I look like I'm right at an hour, but I am very open to questions. If I don't know the answer, I won't answer it. And I'll tell you I don't have the answer, but I'll try my best.
All right, I'm coming around with the microphone here.
Okay, thank you very much. Could you go back to the slide that says different roads leading to the same place?
Yes.
Now, you made about a 30-second overview here about the differences. I think you said Northcrest Community is right to occupy.
Right to occupy.
Green Hills is you own your place, which
Right.
means you also need to sell it then at some point.
You sure do, yes.
In Northridge Village is you're renting month by month.
You're renting your apartment.
And Bethany Life is a hybrid.
I believe it's a hybrid, and forgive me for not knowing 100%, but I think you can rent there, but I think they also have an entrance fee model if that's the direction you want to go.
Okay, back to Northcrest for a moment. Right to occupy means you had the right to occupy that place as long as you were or your spouse are alive.
Correct.
And when you die, it vanishes. It goes back to Northcrest.
Yep. It really never left Northcrest, but you had the right to occupy it, and so you don't have the maintenance. You don't have to worry about selling it, or your kids don't have to worry about selling it when you're gone. Your monthly fees don't continue if you're not there anymore. A lot of the maintenance things, if you own your unit, I'll just use Green Hills. If you own your townhome there and your refrigerator goes out, that's on you. If you're at Northcrest and your refrigerator goes out, that's on us.
So what's the difference between right to occupy or month-by-month rental?
The right to occupy gives you a guarantee for care for life. So in a rental model, if you have that hip replacement, there's no guarantee that they're going to have room for you at the inn. I'm sure they will give you priority, but you don't have a guarantee. Because Northcrest is an entrance fee model and you have the right to occupy, we guarantee that you're going to have a place, if you have that hip surgery, that you have a place to recuperate. That's part of the guarantee with an entrance fee model. When I talked a little bit about the contracts and the difference of the contracts, Green Hills has a contract, we have a contract, and this may be where the Bethany Life might have a contract too. And there's different, they go by A, B, C, D. And if you have a higher entrance fee, you typically have very low substantially low healthcare costs as you age or as you need more care. As the contracts change, if you go to a B, it kind of goes like this. And I don't know if the people on Zoom can see, but I'm kind of starting with my hands farther apart and bringing them together. And then there's some other contracts like a C, it may be a lower entrance fee, but when you get to the health center or if you need that recuperation, your costs are going to be higher. So it's kind of like where do you want to lay your odds, I guess, a little bit, because as the increases in healthcare increase, as your needs increase, the cost goes right with it. So a little bit of help at assisted living is a little bit more, and if you need a health center, it's a little bit more, and then if you need health center with memory care, it's even more. So it's kind of where do you want to protect your finances? It really comes down to finances. And it also comes down to, do I have a place to go when I need a place? Because the contracts will give you different levels of guarantees.
So the thing that you are emphasizing at Northcrest is once I'm in your front door, you're going to take care of me.
Absolutely.
That's what you're really emphasizing.
That's how our structure is. Yes, is that once you're there, you're there, and you're never going to be asked to leave.
Okay. Thank you. That is very helpful.
Yeah.
So I think it's fair to ask so that's, I would say, is the benefit of, or the highlight you would say of yours.
Yes.
What would you say is maybe the highlight or benefit of the other styles?
So because I don't work there, I don't want to speak too much, but I'll tell you what I know for truth. The Green Hills, you own your property, so you have the maintenance, and they do give you priority for health care. And you get a few days included in your entrance fee. But then your cost, if you're in their health center or in their assisted living, are higher. There is a higher rate. And I know they would give you priority. I absolutely know that. But if they're full, you may have to go somewhere else. What we do at Northcrest is we hold open rooms so that we don't get full. And we don't have to say we don't have a place because Mrs. Adams needs one today. We make sure that we have. It's a lot of coordinating, but that's how we do it. Northridge Village, again, the same with the rental model. I have no doubt, 100% confident that they would give, if you needed a place in their assisted living or in the health, they would give you priority. But there's no guarantees because you're a tenant. You've signed a lease.
And so kind of taking away the names and us talking about these specifics, would it be fair to say that the right to occupy model maybe isn't quite as much to get in, but that money you're taking care of for the rest of your life, but when you leave or pass away or whatever it is, you're done. There's no money. Whereas Green Hills, maybe it's more because you have to buy your unit, but there's maybe a potential that you sell it, for your kids sell it for more, or I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, it just, again, it gets to be complicated, and this probably isn't the right forum to go into the weeds. But yes, I mean, there's contracts can have a residual or a refund as well. It doesn't mean you have to be a property owner to get something after the fact. If once you pass away or anything like that, you don't have to own your property. It can be based on your type of contract. That's where it gets confusing. That's where you got to ask questions and learn about the different contract types.
So this is really Senior Living Options 101.
Yes.
And don't think you're going to have the answer to everything or understand every contract or how, but it's giving you an overview and a good idea. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to just offer that if you have more questions, I'm more than happy to stay and answer some questions. Emlyn unfortunately had another appointment. She couldn't stay. But yeah, we want to be really generic here to give you just some really good baseline information so that now you can springboard off of that and start asking those types of questions.
Hi, based on what you just said, is it safe to assume then that you described 4 options here in Story County, but if we chose to go to Des Moines or East Coast, there are a multitude of models?
Yes.
Or a multitude of contracts?
Yes, that's a great question. This is not unique to Ames or Story County or Iowa. These life plan communities or subsidized housing or any of these that we looked at are pretty much national. So if you wanted to move to Dallas to be closer with family, you're going to find these type of structures in Dallas.
Though, excuse me, are there more options though when you go to a larger city, they're east or west coast?
I think I've always worked in Iowa, so but I have worked for a firm that had 153 communities like Green Hills and like North Crest across the country, and they're pretty much similar. It's typically the devil is in the details of the contract on what you're going to get, and then you can also find some locations that. It's like being at the Ritz or a cruise ship on land. I mean, you can go from really just very modest communities to just very luxury, high rise in Chicago. You know, but the structure, kind of that financial structure, you can have the right to occupy or you can own, is very similar.
Tim, are there any questions online?
Vicki, you have one at the back of the room, too.
Yep, and I have some more here. I just like to pop those in.
We have one online question. Does each life plan community have multiple types of contracts to choose from, or do some places only have one type?
Yes and yes. So a location could have multiple contracts, and the reason for that would be that it gives you choice. The biggest difference in contracts is going to be how much your upfront entrance fee is compared to how much you pay per month or for your health care. And so, yes, a location could have multiple contracts, and yes, there's locations that only have one. So you just have to ask. That's a great question to ask.
Is there any information about wait lists that you can share with us?
I can only share my own, and I can do that after this, so I keep it very neutral for all those other locations.
And I think the one thing I did recall you saying is maybe those ones that are income-based, low subsidy, usually have a pretty long wait list.
You know, I always... when I talk about wait lists, I always say, you have to kind of think about a wait list in a couple different ways. Yes, there may be a wait list, but like many wait lists for anything, even for buying a new pair of shoes, you get on the wait list for the blue ones and they call you and they say your blue shoes are in. And I'm like, yeah, I changed my mind. I kind of want red. So there could be 50 people on a wait list and 30 people say, yeah, I'm not ready to move yet, or I'm just gonna wait it out a little bit longer, or I'm ready. So wait lists are kind of deceiving. I shouldn't say deceiving, but you could have a lot of people on a wait list, but maybe a lot of people are just not ready. They just wanted to get their place on the list.
You talked about like if you were in a rental or like Green Hills and you own, and you need extra care and they don't have it. Where are the options to go then for that?
That's the decision, and that's the really unfortunate part. I think they would hope that wouldn't ever happen for one of their residents. But if it does, then you are probably working with the social worker at the hospital to find a place. And it could be a place you want to go, and it could be a place you really don't want to go.
And it could be in Ames, and it could be outside of Ames.
Correct.
Right.
It could be local. It could be whoever's got room.
Okay, so what you're saying there is no one standard contract. Every community, every place has their own contract, and really,
Yes.
so we have to check each place we're interested in.
Yep, and make sure that it fits for you and what you want for your lifestyle. I'd say always start with your lifestyle. Is that a place you want to really live? And then start looking into how does the structure work?
Is there any kind of online resource to compare that helps you compare?
Not really. I mean, you can get out there and just research life plan communities. It seems like a lot of the questions are coming in this area. If you can research life plan communities and get a really good overview of them, or even if you Google CCRCs, it's in your handout, and just say, Google how does a life plan contract work? You're going to get some good generic information, but if you wanted to sit down with Green Hills and Northridge, and there's no one place to go and find all of our information.
What if somebody doesn't have children, or they're single, or are there people out there that will help you with this search?
That is a great question too. It's usually friends, close friends, because I think most people have a friend that is willing to help, and we do have a lot of people that have chosen not to have kids, or not chosen and they don't have children, or they don't have children close by. That you're kind of out on this path, and that's why I say use your resources. If people offer to help you and just answer questions, I've always held the belief that regardless of where I work, we're here for the same reason, and that's to help. It's to help and provide information, because if you go back to that slide that has all those locations on that blue bar, you can't ever dream to understand all of them. I've been doing this for 17 years. I understand most of them pretty well, but that's not where you're going to want to spend your time.
Oh, while I'm walking over, Tim, are there any other online questions?
Nope, that's it here.
Okay, we've got another one here.
And I have one for the end.
Okay. I'm wondering, you've got the four main ones there in your estimation, but what about assisted living? Because that's a whole nother kettle of
That's a whole nother presentation. Yeah, so
give that. When are you going to give that presentation?
I don't know. I'm more than happy to do that. Assisted living, I call assisted living independent living, like we just talked about, with services. So that, you want to be independent. We said it's not a location, it's a lifestyle to be independent. So and most assisted livings are there to provide resources to you. If you need help with getting in and out of a shower, there's somebody there to help you, but you don't have to have that person. I mean, if that's not what you want. We have some people in our assisted living that the reason they moved there is they want 3 really good, nutritious meals a day, and they want to know that someone's outside their door in case they have an emergency. So assisted livings, there's quite a few of them in Ames. There's a lot more of them. Ankeny has absolutely exploded with assisted living. But if you are a longtime resident of Ames or Story County in general, maybe it's Story City, and you want to stay in your hometown, there are definitely options. Now, I can tell you, I'm just going to tell you from Northcrest part is you do not have to pay an entrance fee to come to our assisted living. We are open to the general public for assisted living. So you can start to research them. Green Hills has assisted living, Northridge Village has assisted living, and so does Bethany Life. So we all offer assisted living. And, there's not as many differences, I think, when you get to assisted living and trying to compare like the contracts of the other. There's not as many things. It's more about, do you like the location? Do you like what you see when you go to visit? Are they going to meet what you're looking for? And it takes a visit.
Any other questions? You covered a lot, lots of very good information. And I want to remind you, Dawn offered to stick around and if there's some personal questions. Oh, and you have the last question.
I have the last question. So what do you think, and you can shout it out and I'll repeat it. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing communities such as ours in either now or in the future? What do you think the biggest challenge that we're trying to solve is?
Personnel health.
Baby boomers. Now.
You guys got them both right. Staffing. We have not recovered from COVID on a staffing model, and no one has. So staffing is definite, but it's the baby boomers. If you're a part of the baby boomer, you want different things than what maybe we've offered over the, Northcrest is going to be 60 years old next year. You want different things than what we've been serving up for the last 60 years. So that's our biggest challenge, is to figure out what do you want so that we can provide it. But there's 12,000, statistically, there's 12,000 baby boomers retiring every single day. So that's adding a lot. And the statistics, I've done the studies through the Iowa Economic Development Corporation out of Des Moines. Iowa is following the national statistics on those number of baby boomers. Story County is right in line. It is almost uncanny. And Ames is following. All of the statistics with the increase in the baby boomers are absolutely in line. So there's going to be a lot of retirees in Ames as we keep going. Our first baby boomers have been retired for a couple years now, if you go by Social Security age. But so, yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dawn. My gosh, lots of great. She said, I don't know if my program will last more than a half an hour. And I said, you have really good content, and there's a lot there. I'm not too worried, even if it isn't long. But no, lots of wonderful information. Please fill out your evaluations if you have ideas for other topics or presenters. I'd love to hear those, and there's a basket up on that back table. I know a few weeks ago, we mailed out our July through September program. So our next one coming up is Tuesday, July 30th, and that's Avoiding Scams in the Digital Age. And it is somebody in our information systems department who deals with this about on a daily basis here, I would say, at the medical center, has lots of great information, and it's a whole different ball game when we're talking digital, online, all of that, scams. That, again, Tuesday, July 30th, 2 o'clock. And then Wednesday, August 14th at 2 o'clock, we have one of our vice presidents, Amber Deerdorf, is doing a program giving an update on the Ames Surgery Center. That is out there by Pizza Ranch, just north of there, that kind of opens in September, October. We do a very few cases to start out, then you have to close down, and then you have to have accreditation. So for all intents and purposes, it really won't officially open till early 2025, in the spring 2025. But she's going to come and talk about what's going on, what point they're at, the changes you're going to see, and all that great stuff. So thanks again for joining us online, for coming in person, and have a great day.